Welcome back to another episode.
Bueno.
I wasn't sure you was gonna pick it up, so I picked it up
What
for
up,
you. Go
Doc? I
ahead.
got you, man. Do it, baby. Do it. The people love to see the intros.
I bet, man. I bet. How you doing, man?
Oh, man. God dang. We went from spring to like hot as hell summer in like 2 days. I'm not lying, man. Like 2 days ago, it was still beautiful. It was like 70, 80 degrees. I'm like, man, this is nice. Today, 105. Like, God,
Oh,
that shows a
you got a lot of
happy
clothes.
day. I got
That's a layered
way
outfit for
too much
105,
clothes
brother. That's
and way too much hat to be doing this in 105-degree weather, baby. Way too much. I'm all right, man. I'm excited about our show today. For those in the audience, we're excited because we're going to do a bit of a slew in the next month or two of bringing on some of our tried and true guests and fans, if you want to call them colleagues, I would say, in this education world, to join us on the show. And today we've got one hell of a guest. And if you're a what is it, a subscriber to the show, if you are a fan, you will recognize this person instantaneously. And it's been a joy speaking with this person behind the scenes. It's got a great article, and we're gonna have a really good time today. Doc, what's up with you?
Man, just working out, trying to get back in the gym the way I used to. That I'm not letting my knee control my life. So doing some double days, some workouts in the morning, workouts in the evening. So just getting there. Watch some good TV. Watch the Kevin Hart roast. I know a lot of people got a lot of feelings about it, but I watched it live with people, and it was definitely enjoyable.
Why were there so many feelings about a Kevin Hart roast?
I think because a few reasons. I think one, if you're not used to roast, just the concept of roast, they're very, very. I mean, they're supposed to make you kind of go back a little bit, like Cheryl Underwood's husband, for instance. Jumped off of a bridge and took his own life, and they made jokes about it, and she made them make jokes about it. Like so.
I don't know how I feel about that.
After, well, what I'm saying, but they're looking at the jokes. They're looking at the jokes, and people would try to skip them, and she'd be like, do the joke, and so what happens is the day after, people start to cherry pick jokes out of context, and it's like, no, they were. I mean, The Rock came up. The Rock and Kevin Hart are like best friends. They both lost their dads around the same time. And The Rock went in on like Kevin Hart's dad. Like, so when you pull a clip of somebody saying this or somebody saying that, it's like, dude, that's kind of what they do. I think they trying to have it. Anyway, it was fun to watch at the time. And then you watch afterwards, and everybody that you could tell they haven't watched it or didn't. It's just the way that things are now, man. Outside of that, just been educating people on like this Voting Rights Act thing, what's happening. I did a deep dive on my show around what's happening in Memphis, like specifically as a case study. And it's really interesting. These lines are crazy. They have a line from Memphis that kind of goes squiggly up to like the border of Kentucky where I used to live. That's like, it's ridiculous. It's crazy. So, but I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy our man is here, and the man of our David Castillo. How you doing, Big Dave?
Beard of knowledge, man.
Beard of knowledge, brother. Wisdom, knowledge. I always mix it up.
Here, looking forward to our guest today, and looking forward to next week's guest, and we might have a guest in 2 weeks also. So we'll see. But not much in terms of updates. Let's see, anything significant happen? No, we're just getting ready for the end of the school year. Seems to be coming pretty quickly. Planning for summer, and just taking it one step at a time.
Man, your boy is about to graduate soon, bro. Soon y'all gotta be empty nesters in a little bit, man. How is that for you?
It's gonna happen very quickly in 2 years. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, we'll see.
Are you gonna cry when you become an empty nester, brother?
Probably.
I like it. I love it. I love that. I always get two different answers, right? Like I get the answers of, please go. Please have a place. Another like, you can just stay here. You don't really have to leave. You don't have to go. Hey. But it's cool to see a dad do it for his boy. You know what I'm saying? Because it was very clear between me and my pops and when I graduate, I'm out. I got my rules and stuff. But That boy, he makes me feel. I was doing a different presentation and looked at that old picture. I just feel old. Gosh. I just feel old. I still love that picture, David.
Yeah. Yeah, life is passing us by, Charles, every day. Every minute counts.
And that's why my old ass is in the gym every day now.
Good. Yeah, I just got back from a run, so I'm still a little schwitzy.
Hey, man, that's what I like to hear. Dude, I just came from running away from the cops, so here's that.
There you go.
Well, Omar is our resident model and international man of mystery here. How you doing, brother? I love this outfit, by the way. I was giving you props off camera. Let me give you the props on camera too. Jubilee ain't the only one that gets to be pretty here. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I got to tell you, man. Like, part of me since I was a child is just felt like old. Like, I was young, and I was like, all these young people ain't shit. That was just like literally my thought, dude. And pardon me, Toya, for the curse word. I'll keep it PG-13 today. But I've just always kind of been like old. So it's like, Omar, what's up with this outfit? And I was like, this is the way I've always wanted to dress. This, like, I think people are like, ooh, that's Peaky Blinders. I was like, man, shit, I probably lived during that time in a former life. Always enjoyed this style of garb. And now that I'm getting older, man, it's just unapologetic, man. I just like leaning into it and stuff, man. Like, off camera, you'll see me smoking a cigar. You'll see me smoking like a tobacco pipe, like a Sherlock Holmes ass tobacco pipe. It's delicious. I'm all right, man. I got to tell you, this year's been exceptionally difficult. I think it's been exceptionally difficult, not just for me, for most educators, but like, I'm going through it, man. I've been diagnosed with something called founder's fatigue, something called PEM, post-extortional malaise. I mean, I was telling someone about it today. I was like, George Carlin had this great bit about vernacular in the United States. He's like, it was once called shell shock. 2 syllables, very simple. You understood what it meant. And then it got into stress or post warfare, warfare or combat stress. And it's like, okay, now we're up to 4 syllables instead of 2. You still got combat in there, so you know what's happening. Then post-traumatic stress disorder. You just lost the entire meaning of what the hell that means. And for the audience, essentially, like, I'm going through what could psychiatrically be called shell shock. I am deeply, deeply, deeply exhausted with what has happened this year, but I think we're getting ourselves out of this funk. I do love a Monte Cristo, Alonzo, man. I will take you out for one soon, brother. In fact, it's been too long. Let me take you out for one soon. And thank you for broadcasting this on the TV. I want to hear how it goes. But hey, I was telling our guest today, it's like, how you feeling? I was like, I'm feeling a little run down today. But this is the beauty of the show. Not only must the show go on, but this is one of my favorite things that we do all week long. So are we ready to go, gentlemen?
We are ready, brother.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we have longtime guest of the show. In fact, Doc has been debating whether or not our guest goes all the way back to his radio days. Don't let the frequency of his fantastic comments fool you, ladies and gentlemen. This man has been in the game in education for over 47 years. And one thing that I love about this gentleman that I was actually sharing with some of my administrators today is that I don't have a lot of respect's a nice word. I don't think that anyone who gets into these positions, superintendentship, the higher up positions of administrative work in schools, unless they've been a teacher and a principal, I have an immense lack of respect, because you don't know what the situations are like in the classroom. You may have gotten your doctorate, but you got your PhD in the Plater-Hated degree that is getting hated on by kids and making them come out a different way. This man has been a classroom teacher. This man has been an administrator. And I'm talking like through the gamut, and everything from instructional leadership to running schools. This gentleman has done. He's an author. He's been extensively published. In fact, we're going to talk about an article that he's recently published today. And it is with incredible excitement and joy and even like, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen on the show today, that I introduce our longtime friend and colleague in the game, Mr. Bill Conrad. Bill.
Well, here I am. Oh, it's great.
I'm sorry, Bill. I couldn't clap and bring you up at the same time.
I missed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bill, can you see us? Can you hear us?
I missed Jubilee, but she's part of the family. I can hear you.
Yeah, man. I'm sure she's watching us from
Can
afar.
you see me?
Bill,
Here
it's
I
an
am.
honor to have you. Yeah, we got you. We can hear you. We can see you. We got all the things. And we're excited to have you on the show. Bill, I just did a very quick introduction. I wanted to give the audience a little bit of a larger scope into who you are. Bill, tell us, who is Bill Conrad?
Well, you know, you guys are talking about how long you've been in education. Let me give you my history. I was taught by Socrates. So that's basically
Socrates.
how long I've been.
Oh, yeah, man. I know
But
Socrates.
first of all, I'd like to just say thank you for. I'm old.
Does that make you,
There's no doubt.
does that
about
make you
it.
Plato? Plato?
But anyway, it's great to be with y'all. I consider you my. Well, it was Socrates, and then after school I'd work with Plato. So yeah, I had some good instructors. They were hardcore. They didn't allow any messing around, stuff like that.
Ooh.
They used a lot of the Socratic method as well. So we're going to kind of talk about that today around PBL, which is kind of the genesis of PBL, so the Socratic method.
Okay.
So
before we get into the article,
to be with you guys.
Yeah, give the audience just a little bit of a scope into your background, Bill.
Time. Yes, sir.
Yeah, go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
You have a bit of a delay.
A little bit of a delay.
So,
We just got to give you a second. Go ahead and answer what Omar had for you. You got the room.
okay.
Yeah, I think okay, there you go, Bill.
So,
you got it. Go ahead.
I have a long history, as Omar eloquently stated, in education. I started my career as a middle school science teacher and progressed to associate superintendent for learning technologies for the state of Illinois, which was quite a jump. I've been a curriculum coordinator as well for CCSD 15 in Palatine, Illinois, where we actually converted a school bus into a space shuttle. So the space shuttle visited all at Kimball Hill Elementary School. So that shuttle has been running for about 25 years. They just put it out of service a little while ago. So that's kind of one of my first soirees into problem-based learning was a situation. It was built by Northrop Grumman, and those guys, when the engineers building that thing, they thought the damn thing was going to fly. So all of the bolts had to be perfectly aligned. If a bolt wasn't there, they take it to the shop and rework it. So they were into it. So the wings folded up. It had 3 main engines, all the whole thing, 5 televisions on board, led around station.
Wow.
But most of my career has been spent as an administrator at school districts, and I had the probably bad fortune of being the assessment and accountability director for quite a few large school districts. And I was hated by everyone. They were all having fun and everything was hunky-dory. And then all of a sudden Bill showed up, with the data, and things kind of, they didn't like that. So it was a bit
people often don't like accountability.
An accountability director, but lots of experience. I worked in yes. Yeah, so
we're just on a quick delay, Bill. So I'm talking and then you're kind of answering. But no worries, continue on.
All right, so that's so I can't go into much more about my history, but I really miss my my teaching days, of course, working with the kids and that and all the love that comes from that, and helping them move forward academically really was the joy of my career. And basically that's going to lead us into at my age I'm reflecting on my history a little bit, and I'm working with my editor from the online system, Smita Patel, EdSource, and she and I decided that it might be a good idea to explore this idea of direct instruction versus problem-based learning, which are two kind of big instructional approaches that exist primarily in science, but is as well. So that became the focus of that's going to be the focus of our discussion today. So I look forward to getting into it with you guys. Wow.
Excellent, man. That is a great transition. So Bill's written an article, ladies and gentlemen, that should be out, I think at EdSource, if not now, soon. And it's a really fascinating question because it's one that I'm actually grappling with currently right now, which is the kind of dichotomy between project-based learning and direct instruction. Which one's better? Which one has better application? And I think as we start leaning more and more and more into kids should be doing hands-on work, they should be having real-world application of the knowledge, the project-based approach has an extraordinary level of appeal. But if you've ever been an educator, you'll find that there are some requirements for students to be able to do that kind of work. And I think that's exactly what Bill is going to get into today. So Bill, I don't want to take too much of the thunder. What is your article telling us? And what are some of the highlights that you found within your article discussing project-based learning and direct instruction? And what's the difference?
Yeah, well, basically, it was a good reflection on my part, since primarily when I was an educator in the middle school, I was really gung-ho on the project-based learning. That was like the sine qua non. That was what we were all shooting for. I worked with the Illinois State University. I was in the Honor Science Teachers Project there. And we just exclusively focused on the problem-based learning and helping teachers develop projects that they could carry back into their classrooms. But as I reflected, I thought, maybe I should have spent a little more time on this idea of direct instruction, which really was not very well accepted in the educational community, especially the science community. It was kind of like nobody wanted to be a sage on the stage. They all wanted to be guides on the side. So that was kind of the modus operandi, as you might say, for especially science education. But as I reflected on it, I looked into the situation, and of course I did some direct instruction. But direct instruction gets a kind of a bad rap because a lot of people think it's just about kids reading out of their textbook, answering questions, doing worksheets, kind of boring, learning a bunch of science facts, and not very interesting. But I learned that's not really what direct instruction is. Direct instruction really is a teacher-led instructional approach. There's nothing wrong with that. You can be the sage on the stage. But it starts primarily with a kind of a lesson grabber that gets the kids excited about the topic. But again, the teacher picks the grabber, not the kids. Again, it's always back to the teacher. So in my example, in my article, I talk about the weather conditions on Earth and the weather conditions on Mars. And so the idea for a grabber might be the teacher opens up an umbrella saying, would I need this tool on Mars? And that could be the introduction to a lesson about weather conditions on Mars. But again, the emphasis is on the teacher giving the grabber. Additionally, in direct instruction, there's a very clear objective that's explicitly, it's developed by the teacher and it's explicitly given to the kids. It's written on the board. Nobody can miss what it's about. So that's very important. And in terms of the Mars activity, it might be something like students will understand and be able to compare weather conditions on the Earth and Mars. So that would be the idea. Then it would follow with the teacher giving several mini lessons about weather conditions, what factors are important in terms of creating weather on the Earth and weather on Mars at the same time. So there would be definitely some teacher direction, sage on the stage lessons. And then there would be opportunities for kids to consolidate their knowledge around the topic by doing a T-square where they would compare the Earth's rain situation versus that on Mars. And the teacher would definitely facilitate and help lead the work. There would be lots of checking for understanding. There would be an exit ticket at the end of the lesson where the kids would describe, why they would or wouldn't need a umbrella on Mars. So it's a very tight kind of a structure and system. It's very effective. It's efficient. It takes less time than problem-based learning. And so it has quite a few advantages as it relates to learning. John Hattie, who wrote a book called Visible Learning, reports that direct instruction, when it's done well, as I described, creates a 0.57 effect size, which is very powerful as it relates to student learning. So I learned that it's a powerful kind of a tool. The second approach.
Good. You're going right into it, which is, you're going right into it, which is what project-based learning is. And I'm just going to kind of field it real quick with the team here, which is, I think we both see the positives behind excellent direct instruction and excellent project-based learning. I've seen them both go totally awry. Someone talking for, an hour straight in direct instruction, or someone with such a loosely based project that it all kind of goes to shit. Sorry, language, Mama Toya, to crap. I gotta watch it today. So I think the major question is not just for Bill, what is project-based learning, but really what's the balance? And gentlemen, y'all have seen this, done this. Where do you think the balance lies between direct instruction and project-based learning? And how do we learn from someone like you, Bill, Dr. Conrad, where to kind of, draw those lines and figure out when to do what?
Well, I think that's an excellent question. And the project-based learning is, again, more student-centered. So the teacher challenges the students with a question like, is it raining on Mars today? And then he doesn't give the answer. He lets the kids review data from the various probes on Mars. So they get to learn about the atmosphere. They get to learn about characteristics of Mars. And then from that data that they're analyzing, they come to see that it's too cold, actually, for precipitation to actually form on Mars. But it's the students who come to that conclusion through their work with the data sets that they're looking at from Perseverance or some of the other probes that are rolling around Earth. And the teacher is truly a guide in that, helping them analyze the data, look at the atmosphere, look at the weather conditions, and so on and so forth. So the teacher is guiding the work, but not directly teaching the concepts to the kids. And then usually the project-based learning usually has an end type of activity or presentation where the kids would probably have something like a weather report from Mars. They would kind of each in a team develop a weather report. And so each student would have a role as reporter, facilitator, and so on. And they would work together to learn about Mars and also kind of bring all the information together in terms of their weather report. So again, it's a very motivating kind of experience for kids. It's very eye-opening, and they're taking the charge. The students really are kind of in charge of the learning process. It takes a master teacher, as you said, Omar, to pull this kind of work off, this kind of instruction. Otherwise, project-based learning can turn into kids sitting on the floor copying stuff out of Wikipedia onto a poster board. So to make the work really genuine and authentic and powerful, the teacher really needs to be a master to help the kids move forward in that area. So my conclusion was that we really need blended approaches, because basically kids are not going to be able to have the fundamental knowledge in order to understand, what are weather cycles on the Earth, what are weather cycles on Mars. So they're going to need some direct instruction relative to those fundamental ideas. Once they have the fundamental ideas in hand, they can run with a project and have more success than they would just running around looking at data and trying to figure stuff out. You can waste a lot of time with that. So really my solution to all this is to create a blended approach between direct instruction and project-based learning. And the data and the research supports that's the best way to approach learning, is to do the blended approach. And Hattie's show that it's a 0.57 effect size relative to how well kids achieve based on a blended lesson approach to learning. So
I'll have to check that out.
Kind of the whole shot. So really, direct instruction provides.
One of my
direct instruction provides the map, and the problem-based learning really represents the journey.
Yep, that's right.
So both of them come together in a beautiful way to accelerate.
This thing on. My first education conference that I ever attended was the national, whatever the national association is for, what do you call it? Social sciences. So social studies teachers, right, in high school and middle school, and went to a workshop that was put on. And this is probably, oh my gosh, this is a long time ago, probably like 25 years ago. A workshop that was put on by the Buck Institute of Education at the time, which is now PBL Works. And so that was my first introduction to what project-based learning was, how complicated it was, to actually implement in your classroom. But the importance of, I think when Bill talks about having, students, copying answers from their colleagues or whatever, I mean, unless you have really strong structures put in, it can be very problematic for kids. So it does require a different level, and I would say an additional level of training for teachers. I think also that we're definitely some things are better provided in direct instruction. Some content areas, or depending on what you're studying, lend themselves better to project-based learning. So I think it depends. I think students need a different modalities of instruction. But I think, I don't know if this is correct, Bill, but I would say you're probably likely to see project-based learning happening more often in more affluent school districts with more funding, smaller class sizes, better training.
No, that's absolutely true. There is a definite cost to the kits that you would need to buy, the resources you need to buy. And as you mentioned, the teachers need pretty significant professional development and training in order to pull off a good project-based learning instructional situation for kids. So yeah, it's definitely more expensive. And at the high school level, they're going to need to buy additional infrastructure and equipment that maybe they don't have, and that would help the kids engage in a deeper collection of data, analysis of data, and so on. But what's really nice on the forefront, and what we're hoping for, is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence can really help the teacher set up the question, set up the data sets, help them analyze the data, help them prepare their presentations, critique the presentations before they give it. So AI has a tremendous potential for really helping the teacher with some of the background knowledge that the kids may need and some of the processes that they need to go through in order to success. I'm excited.
Okay.
About the artificial intelligence.
Go ahead, Doc.
Potential.
Yeah, I know that. And I want to thank everybody for bearing with us. I know there's a delay. We got it. We'll work through it. But because of that, I'm going to make my question quick and kind of sharp for you, Bill. I tend to, talk about agency and focus on that and what parents and communities can do outside the classroom. Your research, and you talked about how the data shows that PBL it yields good results for young people. So what advice would you have for parents and people in the community or at the home? How can they support this or make sure their kids are getting exposed to project-based learning? And as David pointed out, even if they go to a school that may not provide that.
Well, there are different organizations out there that promote problem-based learning. I don't know if you're familiar with Odyssey of the Mind, but Odyssey of the Mind is kind of a parent opportunity to engage their kids and team on some. So that's one thing they could do. Aside from that, I think that if the teacher, I think it has to come from the teacher a little bit in developing projects and ideas that relate to the community, water quality, those kinds of problems. So questions that directly relate to the community would probably be the best way to kind of make inroads with the parents and the community. And so the kids would have to go into the community to do their explorations and get the support of their parents and professionals. Now, we talk about is really the premier school in terms of helping kids get into the community and work in various situations, for profit, not for profit, and so on. So, they're structured in such a way that engagement with the community is integral to their problem-based learning approach. Does that? Am I still on?
Yes.
You're still on. It's just a delay. We're just giving you space to finish up.
Indeed, to finish up. Exactly. Yeah. I want to dig in a little bit, Bill, and kind of say, just as out of my own curiosity as an educator, we dug into this a bit. I want to dig a little bit more, which is when we started El Paso Leadership Academy, I had a very fervent desire to do much more project-based learning with our students because they're traditionally underserved. Like you've said, like this happens in affluent communities. And I was like, this should be for everybody. And what I found very quickly, especially with low-income kids, is that they were so behind on their literacy, on their numerology, even on their ability to work autonomously, that it didn't work. Just putting kids into projects without, I think, either, you want to talk about proper scaffolding, but I would arguably say some inherent abilities, like at least a 4th to 5th to 6th grade literacy rate, or at least some ability for them to work autonomously. What would you, in your experience, advise for low-income communities that we're used to, like my own, like the schools, and a way to give our parents some level of knowledge as well? Say, where do you find that sweet spot where you know, you need direct instruction to provide this, not just set of skill sets, but this level of literacy, this level of numerology, this level of autonomy to where students can be successful with project-based learning.
Well, I totally agree with you. And I think that, again, the students need as much training on this process as the teachers do. So they need to understand what their roles are within the project-based learning process. They need to be able to practice that and get feedback, not only on the content, but on the process that they're following to solve the problem. I would also recommend that, you know, you keep it simple.
Yeah.
In other words, you scaffold the work with the kids so that they're not tackling, you know, a huge weather problem. Maybe they're just looking at that and guiding a little bit more, you know, strongly. So it's not going to happen all at once. It has to be scaffolded and taken from a small set of problems to larger sets. It's more facile with the system, then they're going to be able to explore more detailed projects. So keep it simple. Maybe just keep it a simple question and let the kids explore a little data and come up with some conclusions. No big deal. No major kind of project. Just, you know, releasing some of the control of the classroom back to the students. So it's not totally a teacher driven, you know, learn this stuff and you take a test. Trying to build the agency, as Charles says, to build the agency of the students to tackle a problem and resolve it, but not too difficult a problem that they feel have buy-in for and that they can get results and feel happy, because that's truly the scientific method. So if we're not giving our kids opportunity, looking for evidence, drawing conclusions, then what are we, you know, science is not just a series of discrete, unconnected facts. It's also a process, and the kids should have that opportunity to engage in that process, taking small steps first.
Yeah, I want to interject, and this is something that I think I'm just barely realizing, which is kind of cool, is that in my mind, project-based learning is like this hullabaloo. And what I mean by like hullabaloo, I'm like, all right, like we got to spend weeks designing this big ass project, and this project's going to take 2 weeks for the kids to finish. And it's got all these like kind of directions and intricacies, and it's a very autonomous thing. Bill, I think what you're actually leaning a lot more towards in this article and what you're telling us today is that there's a good combo between what we all know is direct instruction, a teacher providing it, but what you're really getting at is problem-based learning, which is giving students a specific problem. It does not need to be one that needs to be solved in 2 weeks. In fact, it could be solved in 10 minutes, something bite-sized, something chewable, something easy, where you give them a problem, you give them some data, and they're working in groups to essentially solve it so that it's not all teacher-led, which is kind of like a bit, it shouldn't be a huge revelation to me, but even with just the vernacular, the wording of project-based learning, like I get a little overwhelmed. I think even our audience may get a little overwhelmed as to like, what is this and how does it work best? And really what you're saying is it doesn't need to be a complicated endeavor. I mean, it sounds like something parents could do with their kids at home.
No, you're absolutely correct. We've got to start small.
We got to start small. We got that, gentlemen. We got to start small. He'll be back. Yeah, he's been having that delay. But I was gonna ask too. I think this is fascinating. We'll have to get him back again too with less delay. But I'll let him finish before I say the fascinating thing I saw. Continue, Bill. You got cut off. You want to say your statement again?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just think that, as Omar said, you can get bollocksed up in a huge project, spend an enormous amount of time and not really get much result in terms of kids learning the science process or learning the science content. So you really have to be careful in terms of not biting off more than you can chew. Maybe the project-based situation is just looking at atmospheric data and aligning it with rain and looking at what are the atmospheric conditions that exist when it rains. So that's a very simple one class period, but the kids are reviewing the data, looking at the temperatures, looking at the pressure, and looking at precipitation and drawing. Again, it's giving some agency to the students to look at the data, analyze the data, and come to conclusions. And that's exciting. And it can be done in 1 or 2 class periods and not become a full-blown, is it raining on Mars with all the conditions that have to be addressed at once. Just deal with 1 or 2. Let the kids look at authentic data and let the patient atmospheric pressure and temperature. So, it's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be a major, huge, project like building I used to have, when I was a science coordinator, I'd go into these classrooms from the ceilings. They'd be building a rainforest for weeks. All this paper mache, they'd bring in their teddy bears, all kinds of stuff. And then I asked them, well, are you teaching anything about rainforest ecosystems? What are the kids learning about that? What are they learning about adaptations that animals and plants need to have? None of that. They were just doing paper mache and hanging stuff off the ceiling in the wall to make it look like a rainforest, but not learning any content. Nothing about ecosystems, nothing about plant and animal adaptations, So what's the point? So I made them take all that stuff down, start teaching some content to the kids.
I think there's a huge miss.
Project-based learning. We build a big pretend.
Yeah, and I've seen that a lot, and that's my constant kind of rally with teachers is that while I'm really excited about their enthusiasm for getting into the classroom and, their like Goodwill Hunting moments that I call them, what I feel is left on the table with a lot of instruction is that they come in with these very convoluted projects and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And the kids are going to discover this and that. And I'm like, where? It's nowhere in this curriculum that students are going to have to do some heavy lifting. You think they're going to get this out of this lesson, but they're not. Where is the backwards planning? Where's the assessment? How are you going to figure out whether they actually learned it? What is the true pieces of knowledge that they're acquiring from this lesson? And I think that is lost a lot of times. So then what happens is that these projects, Bill, as you said, they get this, jumbling of things to do that aren't necessarily reading, that aren't necessarily critical thinking, that aren't necessarily knowledge, that aren't necessarily helping them see patterns and decipher them. It really just becomes
that's why
arts and crafts.
That's why we need to be very careful about using a blended approach. The kids need some foundational skills, and that have to be taught to the children. Kids are not going to figure out, but then maybe they can take that foundational knowledge and do a simple project around it. But the main thing is that teachers need to be able to deliver a powerful direct instruction lesson before they can move into problem-based learning. Ice skaters have to do the compulsories before they do the freestyle. Jazz musicians need to know their notes before they can do jazz. Mm-hmm. So first things first, We need some solid lessons around content and then take it from there. And unfortunately, elect instruction lesson, let alone a problem-based spin-off. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. And I agree, Omar, with what you were saying, because in like real authentic, any kind of learning, but like if we're talking about PBL, part of the planning that goes into PBL is like, okay, we're going to be doing this project. It's going to last maybe a week, 2 weeks, whatever the subject is. You can map out academic standards to it, right? You actually map out academic standards. So every day students are working through their projects, and you can do, everything from, the informal exit tickets to other forms of like assessment, where you can continuously capture data to make sure it's not just an art project at the end of the day, right? Kids made a beautiful quilt about, air pollution or whatever. But there's actually authentic happening.
There's problem-based learning starting out that you actually use a well-designed curriculum, that you're not having to invent it yourself. Like there's a curriculum called POGIL, process-oriented guided lessons. So these are already constructed curricula that teachers can implement without having to, design it from, especially if you're just getting started. You're going to need some structure yourself. And some of these curricula that are already developed provide that structure and problem-based learning. You shouldn't have to.
Yeah, I think that was going to be one of my follow-up questions, and then we're already at the end of the show, so kind of getting into final thoughts already, gentlemen. But I think one of the things I was going to ask Bill is, like, you had mentioned some of these curricular supports, and I think it'd be awesome for me, the audience, to kind of take a couple down. So this project-based, more like, problem-based learning, where could we find some of these curricular resources so that we can look into this ourselves?
Well, I would recommend POGIL, first of all. Have you heard of it?
No, spell it.
The POGIL is a POGIL, process-oriented guided instructional learning. All right. That is a curricular structure that teachers can use at multiple grade levels to implement both direct instruction and PBL. So I would recommend that we start there rather than de novo trying to have to invent it. Another place is the Buck Institute. I think you mentioned out of Marin. The Buck Institute provides a lot of curriculum related to problem-based learning. So that's another good resource that you can take advantage of. But this idea of inventing a complicated, in-depth problem-based learning experience is asking too much of the teacher. It's too much. So they need to have the extra support that a curriculum provides. And then as they get facile with it, they can, of course, play jazz. They can figure out ways to do it differently, more adaptive. But first, you've got to have the something already completed. You know what I mean? Something that's solid what the kids are coming up with.
Are there any exemplar like schools or school systems that are implementing very like authentic and deep problem-based learning that you've seen, Bill?
Well, I would argue that and say that your Met West is probably one of the premier examples of authentic problem-based learning being implemented. So that's one place.
Not in like the Big Picture Learning School in Rhode Island,
So,
or
Met West
and of
is
course,
Oakland.
my former school
Oakland.
district, community.
Keep
Yes,
going, Bill. You're
that's
good. We
another
got
one.
it. Keep going.
yeah, we got you, Bill.
So I would say those two schools did. But again, what we're seeing is that, you know, the new Triers and some of these other districts are more prepared to teach problem-based learning. And say a bigger issue, of course, Charles brings this up, is that we get kind of a rote memorize the fact curriculum for the disadvantaged school districts. And the wealthy school districts get all kinds of projects and different kinds of, because they're being prepared to be, leaders. So there is a class kind of orientation towards instruction. And Anyon writes about this. Excuse me, let me get some water.
See, told you to have your water ready.
So I know I worked in Chester. I worked in Chester, Pennsylvania. And again, you know, this is a primarily Black school. The school itself is a prison. I mean, there are no windows in the school. It's all bricked up. There's kind of, to get in, you've got to go through an electromagnetic thing. And, you know, all they wanted to do was have kids in uniforms and be disciplined. And I asked them, when are you going to start doing some good instruction? And they said, well, after we get the discipline in place, we'll start doing instruction.
It's not how it works.
That's typical of some of the schools that are economically disadvantaged.
Yeah.
You know, they're getting disciplined, and the kids in New Trier, kids in the Buck 15, they're getting the PBL.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a big issue. This kind of, it's not the way it is. The rich get richer. Superior education.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're all on this show, is to try to provide these opportunities for those that don't often get it. We are, gentlemen, like, yikes, we are done. So like we
That's
are
right.
at minute 54.
I was the kind of the Robin Hood of education. I would take from the rich, and give to the poorer districts. I was constantly taking gifted curriculum and moving it into economically disadvantaged schools.
Yeah, and I think the secret behind it is, and you know,
reason why, you know, the wealthy kids get the high quality. Mimi is one of those curriculum that I took from the gifted program and put into the regular school system.
Okay.
And you know, one of the things that
That's
I've
why I
always
got
found
fired
to be
from so many
important
jobs too.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. Is that
This guy's
you
crazy.
can go through the process. So like kind of, you know, I'm looking at some of the comments, which are awesome. Like, hey, you can do scientific process with baking. You can do scientific process with in the kitchen. The question is that teacher or is that person breaking those things down so that the child knows that this is the scientific process? Do they know what a hypothesis is? And the language matters, because then it becomes the universal way of discussing this process, and it gives them the structure.
And what constitutes quality evidence? Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, that's always been the issue, is that like the instruction's only going to be as good as the teacher.
Process has to
only
be
as
taught
good
as
making
much
the
as the
teacher.
content.
Exactly. And, you know, gentlemen, on that note, we got final thoughts. We're going to wrap this show up. So, I'll kind of get us started.
Well, that's a
and
good
then
point,
I'll pitch
Omar.
it to you guys. Is when it comes to these styles of learning, it takes this consideration, and I want to reread the article. It's awesome, by the way. It's really well written and very matter of fact, and we've shared the link for the article on this podcast, so if y'all want to check that out. And if you're listening to us as opposed to watching us, if you just Google Bill Conrad Ed Source, it should pull up the article. It's called The Balance Between Direct Instruction and Project-Based Science. And ultimately, I think it starts diving into what should be our focus, ladies and gentlemen, which is not just great instruction, but how is that instruction being implemented?
Also, it's on
I gotta
Substack.
tell you, there you go.
Yeah, it's on Substack too. Yep.
And my last quick thought is this reverberates back with a conversation I think we were having, over the last few weeks about the integration of technology. And I think the more and more we're seeing this is like, the more kids are working together, the more they're problem solving, the less they're reliant on technology to solve the problems and more just to provide a little bit of information, the better it is. And I love that direction because we need to kind of get back to those fundamentals. And that's all I have to say on the subject. Gentlemen,
I've got a couple of closing thoughts here. I think I don't think it's an and or. I think direct instruction definitely has an appropriate place and time. I think PBL can definitely have an appropriate place and time. I will tell you that some of my best teaching days, where I literally didn't have to lift a finger, where we were mid unit doing a PBL unit, and everything was just dialed in, and we'd come in and then have some kind of warm up to get the students warmed up, and then we transitioned to the project time, and it was they just took over, and I was literally just walking around, helping to answer little questions here and there, giving little, pieces of feedback. But it does require a particular amount of planning on the front end. So there's that. I think also what we know scientifically is that, I don't know what this has to do with student outcomes, but when students generate their own knowledge, research their own data, develop their own problems that they're trying to solve, and if they're related to the community, that's an important connection. But also that's really when we say deeper learning, that's deeper learning. They're learning lessons to put together different concepts and skills across different disciplines. Those skills tend to last them much longer in life than they would get from kind of a surface level direct instruction lesson. And the last thing, I just said it, but I love the ability of PBL to serve as a way to solve local community issues. So that for me, that's kind of the big selling point for me, because every community has its own problems, from El Paso to San Diego to Illinois to the Philippines, right? We've all have our own issues, right?
Yeah.
And my final thoughts, I took some notes as well. One, thank you for being here, Bill. We'll figure out the technical difficulties with you, and we'll bring you back on, maybe have you use your phone so we can have more of a back and forth. But I think that the questions were really good. I'm looking at this as more of an outsider, not in the classroom. I think project-based learning or problem-based learning, which I like the way that you kind of restated that, Omar. Toya was asking, well, you got to have the knowledge. Actually, you can do these things at home with the things that you're an expert at, with the things that you're good at, with grocery shopping, maybe set up some kind of, with fake money and do that and kind of get to, and so they can kind of learn. It's kind of inconsequential. And I wanted to just show an example. I think I've told y'all about my neighbor across the street, Mr. James. He's the Mexican cat with a black son. He passed away. He lost his battle with cancer not too long ago. But my neighbor, who's right here, the older black sister who drove the bus for a while, she has that garden, and she grows all this stuff. And then kids will come around and she shows them. Yeah, I'll show you. She shows them all the stuff we have, and when the harvest comes, and Mr. James came and brought some peppers from his culture, and she had the stuff from her culture, and him with these kids, they made like this hot sauce like together, right? Like, but these kids, they're the ones who planted the stuff. They kind of checked on it, took care of it, and made it, and these kids were learning and getting all this background stuff and this cultural immersion. And Bill knows this. He's in Illinois. He knows the Italian influence here, and an Italian person came and helped in. So, these kids in a project-based learning model made this African, Mexican, Italian kind of pepper sauce, right? That like the whole neighborhood has now, right? Like I think this is such an important thing because it sounds new, but it sounds like where education started, right? Like there's a problem, or
yes.
Let's say if David is a carpenter, teaching a kid, starting with a small project that he can mess up on and learn, and then you're starting to fix things around the house. So everybody here can do some things outside of school and teach. So I really enjoyed today's topic, and we definitely got to get you back. And this is really good. R.I.P. to Mr. James, man. He really, really cool dude.
Closing thoughts from you, Bill?
Well, I really enjoyed interacting with you guys, and I especially like the community component and developing problems based on a community. That's just awesome. You could get a whole project going around water testing in the school. That could really get the kids engaged in building some agency around, making sure the water in the school. So that's a tremendous example, Charles, on building the product.
Indeed, man. Bill, I just want to say on behalf of the entirety of the South Star Classroom, thank you immensely for joining us today, sharing your expertise. By the way, it is Dr. Bill Conrad, ladies and gentlemen. So we got another real doctor in the house. And I love pointing that out, man. We got a second real doctor in the house, just like Dr. Cole.
Can't you see him burn and burn?
Yeah, I thought you were also going to go into a little Dr. Sayus. Woo! We Dr. Sayus. Shout out for
but
the
I
Simpsons.
Only have a master's degree in science.
Yeah, only, man. This humble man. It's cool to have such a level of expertise. It's cool to see the article. It's cool to have people who are as passionate about making a change in children's lives as we are. So on that note, thank you so much to our guest, Dr. Bill Conrad, to the real Dr. Charles Cole III, to the Beard of Knowledge, David Castillo. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Omar Yanadi. You will see us here next week, same time, same bat channel. I want you all to take care of each other. Be nice to each other out there in this untenable, flaming fire that is our reality right now. Send the love to you, everybody. Peace.
Peace out.